Can you imagine that before the start of the season the FIA was already investigating Fernando Alonso's car? And that the problem was not aerodynamic but electrical? Because that is exactly what happened in the second week of testing in Bahrain. The FIA has published new technical data on the AMR26, has requested additional documentation from Aston Martin and has put the integration of the Honda power unit under the microscope. There is no sanction. There is no confirmed illegality. But there is something much more disturbing. A regulatory gray area in the management of hybrid energy that could change the start of the championship. Is Aston Martin at the limit of the regulations? Or are they simply understanding the new technical package better than anyone else? What the Bahrain tests reveal not only affects straight-line performance. It also leaves a much bigger question hanging in the air. Has Adrian Newey found a regulatory loophole? Or is his project at risk before it even reaches Australia? The second week of testing in Bahrain was not a simple data collection phase. It was the moment when the AMR26 stopped being a theoretical promise and began to show its real seams in front of the FIA and its direct rivals. What seemed like an ambitious evolution became the center of technical attention in the paddock when the regulatory body decided to publish new dynamic records and request additional information on the integration of the Honda power unit in Fernando Alonso's car. On the track, the car showed two very clear faces. In slow and medium cornering, behavior was solid, stable, with a well-established aerodynamic platform thanks to the aggressive suspension geometry and compact packaging concept. The AMR26 seemed like a noble, predictable car, with good traction and controlled degradation on long runs. That suited Alonso's style perfectly. A driver who maximizes consistency and exploits balanced cars rather than explosive ones. In that section, the project conveyed maturity. But the problem began to be detected in the high-speed sectors. Data released by the FIA showed that energy recovery from the Honda unit was not occurring within the ideal range of 250 to 350 kilowatts. This forced the hybrid system to activate protection modes to avoid thermal overloads or compromises in the battery. Translated into the language of performance, straight-line power limitations. And in today's Formula One, losing energy efficiency means losing attack, defense and strategic management capacity in the race. The most delicate thing is that the FIA did not declare any solution illegal. There was no formal protest or immediate sanction. However, the fact that additional technical documents were requested indicates that the system is under analysis. The focus is not on the chassis itself, but on the longitudinal energy management and the hybrid's cooling system. This is where the so-called gray areas of the regulation appear. Those areas where technical interpretation can make the difference between innovation and regulatory risk. Aston Martin finds itself in an uncomfortable but not hopeless position. He can continue using his current setup, but knows that any new technical directives before the start of the championship could require modifications to critical components. And when we talk about power unit integration and internal packaging, we're not talking about small aerodynamic tweaks. We're talking about the structural architecture of the car. This is where the strategic factor comes in. The AMR26 has been conceived as one of the most aggressive designs of the new technical cycle. The extreme compactness of the Honda unit seeks to maximize aerodynamic efficiency and mechanical stability, but that same aggressiveness may be compromising thermal margins. If the system needs to go into power protection, it means that the limit is very close. And in Formula One, when you are constantly operating close to the thermal limit, any environmental change or temperature variation can critically alter performance. The second week in Bahrain left a clear conclusion. The car's potential exists, but its energy balance is not yet solid. It's not a scandal. It is not illegal. It is something more subtle and more dangerous. A technical fragility in an extremely regulated area. While Mercedes and Ferrari showed more consistent top speed figures, Aston Martin seemed to rely too much on cornering efficiency to compensate for losses on the straight. That may work on certain circuits, but in such a demanding schedule, total energy efficiency is a must. The FIA, by publishing this data, is not accusing. He is warning. It is making it clear that hybrid management will be one of the critical points of the year. And Aston Martin knows it. The second week in Bahrain did not define a culprit, but it did establish the first major technical battleground of the season. Because it is one thing to lose a few tenths in testing, and quite another to start the season knowing that your hybrid system may be operating at the limit of its thermal and regulatory window. The second week in Bahrain exposed that the problem is not purely one of maximum power, but sustainable energy delivery. When the Honda unit does not recover in the optimal range of 250 to 350 kilowatts and enters protection mode, What is compromised is not only the top speed, but the strategic capacity of the car. In the race, that means something critical. Less energy available to defend yourself with DRS, less room to attack, and less flexibility to manage electrical deployments at key moments. In classification, it can be hidden with aggressive maps. In long runs, reality appears. And this is where the scenario becomes more delicate. If the AMR26 depends too much on its cornering efficiency to compensate for possible limitations on the straight, then its competitiveness will be extremely dependent on the type of circuit. On tracks where downforce and mechanical stability are a priority, the car can shine. But on long straight tracks, where energy efficiency makes decisive differences, the disadvantage can be amplified lap after lap. The problem is not just pure performance. It's predictability. When a hybrid system goes into energy protection, the pilot loses confidence in the power delivery. And in Formula One, confidence is half a second. If Alonso cannot anticipate exactly when he will have maximum deployment or when the system will limit power to protect battery and temperatures, his ability to plan overtaking or defend positions is drastically reduced. Furthermore, there is a silent political factor in all of this. The FIA has not sanctioned, but you have requested additional documentation. That sends a message to the rest of the teams. We are watching this solution. And in such a competitive environment, it is enough for a rival to formally lobby for a clarifying technical directive to be issued. If that happens before the official start of the championship, Aston Martin would have to react with surgical speed. And modifying power unit integration is not changing a spoiler. It is to alter internal architecture, cooling, thermal ducts, and energy management maps. The big strategic question now is this: can Aston Martin correct any potential limitations without compromising the aggressive concept of the AMR26? Because if to stabilize energy recovery they need to open the packaging, increase cooling, or soften electrical maps, they could lose precisely what makes the car strong in curves: its extreme compactness and its aerodynamic efficiency. The balance is very fine. The most immediate scenario is clear. Aston Martin arrives at the start of the season with a car that has potential, but has not yet demonstrated absolute energy stability. And in Formula One, consistency is everything. It is not enough to have good cornering. It is not enough to have a driver like Alonso capable of squeezing impossible tenths. If the hybrid system does not allow power to be deployed in a sustained and predictable manner, any direct fight becomes a strategic disadvantage. Let's imagine the first real duel. Long straight, DRS open. Alonso tries to defend position. If the electrical deployment is conditioned by thermal protection, the rival will have an invisible but decisive advantage. And that cannot be corrected with talent. The FIA, for its part, has already marked territory. He has not penalized. He has not declared anything illegal. But by publishing data and asking for additional documentation, it has left the door open to future technical interpretations. If energy patterns outside of expectations are detected in the first races, the reaction could be immediate. And any regulatory clarification at the start of the championship would force urgent adjustments. That's where the margin of error disappears. The biggest risk is not the sanction. It is competitive instability. A team that does not know with absolute certainty whether its solution will be challenged lives in containment mode. And that affects strategic decisions, update development, and evolution planning. The second week in Bahrain made something very clear. The AMR26 is not a conventional car. It is an ambitious, aggressive project, compact to the limit. And when you work at the limit, every tenth of temperature, every kilowatt recovered, every energy management map becomes a critical factor. If Aston Martin can stabilize its hybrid recovery without losing its aerodynamic efficiency, it can become a solid contender on technical circuits. But if you need to smooth maps or expand thermal margins, you could lose the very edge that makes the concept competitive. The second week of testing in Bahrain did not leave headlines of spectacular times or explosive statements. He left something more important: technical signals. Signs that the AMR26 is an extremely ambitious project, built to the limit of compactness and energy efficiency, and that this same daring can become its greatest strength or its most vulnerable point. The FIA has not sanctioned. It has not declared any solution illegal, but he has observed, has published data. You have requested additional documentation. And in Formula One, when the regulator begins to look closely at a hybrid system, it means that the regulatory frontier is close. Very close. Aston Martin arrives at the start of the championship with a solid mechanical base, a stable car in corners, and a concept that, on paper, has real potential. But it also comes with an energetic mystery that is not yet completely resolved. If the recovery and management of the hybrid system is stabilized within safe margins without losing performance, the project can be consolidated quickly. If not, every long straightaway will be a reminder that in the hybrid era, power isn't just horsepower, it's intelligent energy management. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.